I guess pivoting to your fragrance tips and tricks, because like, as far as I'm concerned, you invented fragrance. There are a lot of frequently asked questions that I think you would be just the pro to answer. First things first, how do you like to apply your fragrance?
It depends on how much time I have.
Yeah.
So if I have like as much time as I'd like, then I definitely would start with, layering the different types of formats.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with like a beautiful body scrub in the shower, a scented body scrub, body wash, and then when you come out, like a beautiful body oil or lotion. Body oil tends to carry your fragrance a lot longer, and I do prefer it over lotion if you are using it to set your skin for fragrances. And perfumed oil is also a big thing here in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Like it's everywhere. And then I start with my eau de parfum. And I usually start with layering. The first layer would be something that I kind of want to set the mood of the fragrance. So for example, if I wanted to wear something super gourmand, I would probably start with something like Yum Pistachio Gelato, and then kind of top it with things that I want to either sweeten it or freshen it up. So like if I wanted to make it more sweet, of course I would go with Vanilla 28. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to make it more fresh, maybe something like a musk fragrance. We have a beautiful musk 12. Or citrusy, you could make it more citrusy. So I just like to play and experiment, and sometimes I will go out of control and I'll layer up to like 10 fragrances. Again, it just depends on how much time I have. Yeah. And then I'll use a hair mist. If I have a lot of time, I'll use a perfumed oud wood and burn it and smoke it onto my clothing, onto my hair. So it just really depends on where I'm going and how much time I have.
Oh, wow. I love it. So in terms of like when you're using the eau de parfum, are you like a spray and walk through kind of gal, or are we like tapping our wrists together?
I spray all over. So I usually start on my skin, like just in some areas. I don't spray too much on skin, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I use my clothing a lot more because I just feel like it carries so much better. It lasts longer. The only place I really go hard on skin is like where I just pull up my shirt and I spray inside. Mm-hmm. And then I'll pull my back, like my clothing, and I'll spray on my back too, because I'm a sweaty girl. So like as I sweat, it kind of like diffuses out. Like I'm like a walking diffuser.
Oh, I love that.
So I feel like that works really well. But yeah, that's typically my go-to is like inside the shirt, on my back, and then a little bit on my pulse points.
I love that. And I loved using it on clothes because there's nothing like putting on a coat that you've sprayed with like your favorite winter scent and you're like, yes, fall is here again.
Yes. You should try using perfumed oud wood and like burning it onto your clothing. Like you kind of use the smoke to like diffuse into your clothing. It will last forever.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's unforgettable. Yeah.
Pro tip. Yes. So I'd love to know, because you are such a pro at storing fragrances, how do you recommend storing fragrances if you don't have the beautiful perfume closet that you have?
I didn't always have it. I used to have like a very small space dedicated for my fragrances. It depends on how many you have, but I think definitely keep them as much in a dark space as possible. Sunlight, even normal light can ruin your fragrances and make them oxidize faster. So definitely keep them in a dark, cold place. I'd say temperature is even more important than light. If it's hot, it will destroy the fragrances. So that's why they're in my basement. My fragrance library is in my basement. And I keep it super cold down there. And if you have a fragrance that you love and it's almost to the bottom of the fragrance, I do recommend decanting it into a smaller atomizer. This is something that I actually learned recently from Olivier Cresp, the master perfumer who created Yum with his son, Sebastian. But he told me that actually, if you do have, a lot of us, we love fragrances and then we leave like the smallest amount because we don't want to finish it. And you're like, I'm going to save it for special occasions. He's like, when you do that, you're actually making it oxidize so fast because there's so much oxygen, like space in the bottle, that it actually speeds up the oxidation process. So decant your bottles that you're holding on to something to the very end. I get it. Like I never want to finish my fragrances because I also I think there's still something in there. I want to keep it in my library. But no, it's not good for your fragrance. So decant often.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, I didn't either. He blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense because all of the ones that I have where there's just a little bit left always stink.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, because you've let it oxidize.
So I guess for people that want to build up their fragrance wardrobe, as you have, what are your tips on building a fragrance wardrobe? Like, are there any staples that people should veer towards first, or is it just about figuring out what you like?
I think definitely figure out what you like, but I would say push yourself outside your comfort zone and just remember that you can layer. So like, for example, say you love gourmands. If you buy all gourmands, like how interesting are your combinations going to be?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like try to buy things in every fragrance family, something woody, something fruity, something floral, something, earthy, green, just mix it up so that you have that variety. Cause I feel like the perfect fragrance wardrobe is not something where it's like all of the same. It's like there's a lot of variety for you to play with.
And as you're building the scent wardrobe, how do you advise people to read the fragrance structure while shopping? Because, I mean, for somebody like you that lives and breathes fragrances, you know what top, base, and heart notes and everything mean. But for a consumer that is just starting their fragrance journey, how would you recommend reading that format?
I wouldn't read too much into it.
Okay.
I think that we overthink it. It just means like the top is just your first impressions. It's what you're going to smell for the first, minute or so. And then the middle is going to be the next 4 or 5 minutes, maybe even longer. And the dry down is going to be like the longest lasting impression. So I feel like it's just terminology. Like a lot of people get overworked by like all these terms, but if we just break it down into simple, English, I think we don't need to overthink it. But top is important, but it's also what's going to disappear the fastest.
True.
So I think for me personally, I'm always paying the most attention to the mid and dry down.
Okay.
I feel like it's going to be the longest lasting, The top is still important, but it's going to disappear the fastest.
For sure. That's so good to remember because I feel like before I knew very much about fragrances, I would just read the top. Like, these are the main ones, but they disappear.
I feel like they're usually the ones that are going to be the most unique and interesting because you have like the spices that are usually on top. You have a lot of interesting ingredients on top. But yeah, they just don't last very long. Again, they'll be your first impression, but it disappears
For sure.
so quickly relative to how long you're going to be wearing it.